Welcome to the Swolemates Podcast. I'm Rafe Romans. I'm a personal trainer and coach based in Dubai, and I help men in their 30s and 40s optimize their lives and health and fitness so that they can live long, healthy, happy lives and maximize their time. I've been coaching for around 15 years now. I've competed in CrossFit, I've competed in rugby, and I come from a really sporty background, but I'm also in my late 30s myself, so I understand what it feels like to have a busy schedule, to really struggle with managing your time and your health and fitness. I've also worked a number of corporate jobs in technology and media, aerospace and oil and gas. So I know roughly what it's like to juggle things around when you're working a 9 to 5. I offer online coaching courses and one-to-one hybrid coaching courses for men who really want to get the most out of their lives. I offer that through an app platform. I offer bespoke dietary and nutrition coaching alongside their exercise programming and coaching. And I'm there every step of the way to help you reach your health and fitness goals. Today, I wanted to introduce my podcast and do an episode that is quite pertinent to some of the discussions that I've been having with a lot of my clients in the past, but also with my friends and family. A lot of my friends are sort of in their 30s, babies all over the place. You know what it's like. I kind of am the weird uncle in that equation because I don't have any kids, but I do have fish. So I guess that's kind of the same. They need to get fed every so often, cleaned a little bit. They die, which I am reliably informed doesn't happen quite as much to babies these days, but you never know. I wanted to cover today a little bit around the topic of balancing your routine, how to fit fitness in and around your lifestyle if you've already got quite a full-on lifestyle. You might be a dad, you might be in a high-flying corporate job, or you might just really prioritize your own time over your health and fitness. And on that point, I wanted to talk a little bit about why health and fitness is important first and foremost. So I think one of the things that people tend to miss is the investment that you make into your health and fitness is not just something that gives you aesthetic benefits. It's going to benefit your entire life. Now, I think if we're looking at the balance of benefits in terms of having an exercise regime that prioritizes strength training, that has some cardiovascular training in there, and dialing in your diet as well, so that my philosophy tends to be if 70 to 80% of the time your diet is pretty good, you can enjoy the things that you want to be able to enjoy the rest of that 30% of your time. Now, that's not a new idea. This is something that's been peddled around health and fitness for a long time. And I think health and fitness has started to try and detach itself from this bodybuilding. Come on, bro, hit the gym 24 hours a day. I only eat chicken, rice and broccoli. That's bullshit. And really, to be honest with you, unless you want to look like a bodybuilder, which is something you have to choose to do as a vocation, you don't have to live that lifestyle. But exercise is important, and I think if we look at some of the benefits, we start to understand why we should start prioritizing our health and fitness and why it's a worthwhile investment of our time. What I'll see is a lot of guys in their mid to late 30s who have a big investment portfolio, or maybe they've got multiple properties, or they are saving up money for X, Y, and Z, but they don't really take care of their health. And whilst they're saving up for that dream home that they're going to occupy presumably somewhere 10 years down the line, they're not really thinking about the fact that, how long are they going to live to enjoy these things? And as morbid and as maudlin as that sounds, it's actually a real legitimate concern if you don't look after yourself. Now, if we think about why an exercise regime or why a strength regime is, and both of those things as well as good nutrition are important, there are a number of different benefits that we can get. And some of these are almost immediate from starting any kind of health and fitness program, particularly a really well-structured one, like the ones I offer, obviously. But I mean, things like improved cardiovascular health, better metabolic health, and we'll get onto a little bit about what metabolism is in a minute, enhanced mental health, so depression and anxiety and moods and things like that are a lot more consistent when you have a really good diet and exercise regime. Effective weight management. Now, I don't like to call this fat loss because I think that we need to think more in terms of our body composition as opposed to I'm obese, I'm not obese, this kind of thing. Like the amount of muscle percentage that you have on your frame versus the amount of body fat percentage you have on your frame is a much more effective metric than just measuring fat, in my opinion. Anyway, it also helps you maintain your muscular fucking hell, man. There are a lot of big words in exercise. I'm dyslexic. You're going to hear me stumble over a lot of these. Probably not going to edit them out. So I'm not an idiot. I just can't pronounce shit, man. Especially if I've never heard it before. I don't know if you guys get this. Like, if there's a word that I'm just reading and I've never heard someone say it out loud, I really, really fucking struggle when someone says it and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, especially things like amino acids, right? Like cytosinicine and all of this shit. And they're just like, oh yeah, cytosinicine. I'm like, you mean, yeah, completely fucks me up. Anyway, where were we? Yeah, maintain musculoskeletal health. So yeah, this is what I'm talking about here is maintaining your muscle mass and offsetting, let's see if I can get this fucking one right, because I know this one, sarcopenia, which is the loss of muscle as you age, and your bone density, obviously. Very important, even for women as well, particularly with osteoporosis and things like that being quite prevalent in older female populations. And finally, sort of increased longevity. I mean, listen, you live your life day to day, maybe. I don't know. I'm sure that there's a lot of people on the planet who don't really think about the future consequences of what they're doing right now, and that's fine. But what I find with a lot of pragmatic and intelligent men is that they are thinking about what's going to happen in 10, 15, 20 years. And they're more generally thinking in terms of finances and family planning and goals and objectives, and sometimes they don't even factor in their health and fitness at all. And that blows my mind because, as I said, investing in your health and fitness now, particularly if you're sort of in your 30s and approaching your 40s, is paramount. You're not going to be able to do some of the stuff now that you're doing in your 30s and 40s in your 50s and 60s if you don't start now. It's just not going to be a possibility. Anyway, I wanted to break down these things about the importance of exercise in a little bit more detail. I'm going to pop some stats up on the right for you guys, or if you're listening on the podcast, I'll drop them in the description. A lot of the stuff that I am going to quote is statistics from the Center of Disease Control. Really good source of information, honestly. Fairly unbiased. There's some conspiracy theories about COVID and mRNA vaccines, but we're not going to talk about that, okay? Next podcast, aliens and other conspiracy theories. But anyway, listen, let's talk about cardiovascular health. So, heart disease is a leading cause of death for men. 7% of men. That's a ballpark figure because the CDC statistics actually break it down into ethnicity, which is interesting. And I think there's a wider conversation that we could have there about social demographics and the effect of how socioeconomic conditions have an impact on health, but we'll save that for when I manage to get someone with doctor before their name, or who's a politician on the show. A boy can dream. Anyway, 7% of men in the United States over the age of 20 have some form of coronary heart disease. That is insane. That's 7 out of every 100 people having coronary heart disease. And coronary heart disease, whilst it's not entirely preventable, there are congenital, obviously, implications. It might run in your family and things like that. But you can certainly delay its onset, and you can certainly decrease the severity through a healthy exercise and diet program. And this is empirically proven. I mean, this is not something that's up for debate. Exercise, maintaining a good body weight and things like that really genuinely lead to better outcomes in terms of coronary heart disease, and it's just a given. So if you have heart disease in your family, me, for example, but both of my grandparents, both my male grandparents died of heart disease. My father passed away from heart disease. Safe to say I'm pretty obsessed with keeping a healthy body weight and good cardiovascular system, and keeping my diet in check so that my cholesterol is in check, and all of these kind of things. I do a lot of crack cocaine on the weekends, and to offset. I don't do any crack cocaine on the weekends. If the Dubai government is watching this, I don't do crack cocaine, but if you want to buy some, I know a guy. Wink, wink. Anyway, moving on. So, Another major benefit of maintaining a healthy exercise regime in your later life or in your midlife, God, as I said, men 30 to 40 is approximately my niche, alongside competitive athletes and things like that, because I have a real background in coaching competitive athletes and sports people and things. Whenever I mention the population demographic and realize that I am in fact 37, I have to start thinking middle-aged, and that is the most fucking depressing thing on the planet, isn't it, really, to be honest with you? Middle-aged. Anyway, late 30s. I had this debate with someone, like, when does the late 30s start? Apparently, the strictest definition of late 30s is after 35. So if you're 36, you're in your late 30s. 35 is the exact midpoint, and that's the only time that you're in your mid-30s. If you're 31 or 30 through to 34, you're in your early 30s. 35 is the bang-on midpoint, and I don't know who makes these definitions. I'll see if I can pull up a definition and stick it up there. But I'm pretty sure that, that 35 is the only time that you're in your mid-30s. So you're either early 30s or late 30s, or for 1 year, you're mid-30s. So, yeah, fucked either way. Anyway, metabolic health. The metabolism is essentially the sum of all the chemical and biological processes that occur in your body over the course of your day, just by existing. Now, the primary function or the primary outcomes of metabolism are two things. You've got anabolism and you've got catabolism. Anabolism is growing or producing new tissues or producing different things. And catabolism generally is the breaking down of things and sometimes making them into other things, sometimes they're excreted by waste products. But this whole equation is balanced by a really complicated series of processes in our body, and that complicated series of processes, including our endocrine system and all of that kind of stuff, endocrine meaning hormone system, that constitutes your metabolism. So when we're talking about a dysfunctional metabolism, we're talking about metabolic disorders. They come in a variety of different factors, right? So you've got things like diabetes, which is your insulin being fucked up. You've got low testosterone, which, as the internet would make you believe is all a response of us all being pussies as men nowadays and not killing things with axes. I mean, we can talk about primal health a little bit in a different podcast. Low testosterone in men is an actual fact, but and it is. Testosterone production is controlled by a variety of different factors, but one of the ways that you can spur it on is by working out and lifting heavy weights and so on and so forth. Research consistently shows that metabolic disorders like diabetes are staved off or prevented, although again, the caveat here is that some people are genetically predisposed to these things. But like type 2 diabetes, for example, a healthy balanced diet and a good exercise regime is really going to help prevent something like that. One of the other points about a good health and fitness regime, and another major reason to maintain one, is its effect on your mental health. Now, let's say the majority of men in their 30s to 40s are at the midpoint in their career. A lot of them, as I mentioned, have families, they have kids, they are married, they have a long-term partner, some of them have fish like me, but a pretty startling percentage of men will struggle with mental health during their lives. Now, exercise, again, is empirically and categorically proven to have a positive impact on your mental health through a variety of different things. I mean, there's the excretion of dopamine and endorphins and all of these kind of things that go on a hormonal level. But also, it affects things like psychological factors, for example, your self-image and your feelings of strength and all of these kind of stuff, all the core values of being a man, an alpha male, provider. I mean, you're going to feel a lot better if you can go out and kill a fucking bear with an axe than you are, having to shoot it. But I don't know. Anyway, we're not training to kill bears with axes, but you get my point. Plenty of studies on this. Higher levels of physical activity are point blank associated with better mental health outcomes, lower risks of developing depression and anxiety and things like that. Again, I'll cite a source up here so that you all can go and not click on it. But otherwise you can just take my word for it. My mental health is absolutely awful. I'm joking. I'm good. Really, please send help. Please, someone. Anyway, moving on. So a big chunk of my clients' the first and foremost reason that they will come to me is they are concerned about either being obese, getting obese. The big phrase is, I guess, I want to lose weight and get toned. I have objection with the word toned, and I have objection with the word lose weight, because what you really want to do is stay the same weight but be more jacked with that weight. But listen, at this stage, 40% of adults in the US, this is an insane statistic when I think about it, 40% of adults between 20 and 39, 40%, 4 in 10 people are classed as clinically obese. Now, you can take your healthy at any size argument, you can take your body positivity argument, you can take whatever fucking argument you want, and you can stick them right up your ass, because obesity is the largest preventable cause of comorbidities, as in other diseases. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, and if I did, the obese people would probably eat it. Being fat just sucks for your health. And I don't care what your smiley, happy, dancy influencer on Instagram tells you, oh yeah, you know, I'm obese and I can still do what the fuck I want. They're still going to get out of breath carrying fucking 20 extra kilos up a set of stairs. Their heart is still going to struggle to pump blood around all of this excess fat tissue that they've got. Now, there's always this straw man argument that, well, bodybuilders are not healthy either. No, they're fucking not. Like, they're also steroided and HGH'd up to the fucking gills, and they're dropping like flies now because they are just so filled with testosterone. But that's not where we're trying to get. What we're trying to do is maintain, as adults, a healthy balance between body fat, muscle tissue, and just be in that nice midpoint. Nobody really gives a fuck if you have a six-pack, unless you do, in which case, again, that's a lot of work. But at the same time, the long-term health outcomes of being overweight, i.e. having too much body fat, are so severe that is it not worth focusing on weight management in the longer term if you really are serious about investing in longevity and health and things like that? So musculoskeletal health is another major benefit of having a healthy exercise regime, particularly one that incorporates resistance. After age sort of 35, 40, men go downhill pretty fucking fast. And women. Everybody goes downhill pretty fucking fast if they don't maintain muscle mass. Your muscle mass starts to drop off at a rate of knots after age 50. I mean, I don't know if you've been to an old people's home recently. Let's use this as an example. You know when you see those fuckers having trouble getting up from a chair? That's what happens if you don't strength train. Now, obviously, if you're in your 90s and you've had a stroke, it's excusable not to be able to get up from a chair. But if you're struggling to get up out of a chair when you're in your 60s, then you have a fucking problem, I'm telling you now. And this is something that can be prevented by minimum effective doses of weight training. Health and fitness could be viewed through the lens of being almost a medicinal treatment for a variety of ailments. I mean, if we look at the associated health benefits that we've just gone through, we could consider it a type of medicine. So all health and fitness has a dose-dependent relationship, right? The amount of calories that you put in is going to dictate the amount of weight that you gain or lose, for example. The amount of fitness that you do is either going to impact positively, or in some cases, if you're overtraining or you're over pushing yourself or you're doing the wrong kind of training, negatively impact your training. So musculoskeletal health has this dose-dependent relationship. You can maintain a healthy amount of muscle mass and also concurrently bone density, which is also very important, because when you're in your 70s and you fall off the chair because you're too weak and then your bones all snap, you're kind of fucked, right? Breaking hips and stuff like that. And weight training helps increase your bone density, like exponentially. We're talking like orders of magnitude here. We've all seen the pictures of 70-year-old man who didn't weight train, 70-year-old man who did weight train, like a scan of their femur or some shit like that. Unfortunately, it's true, guys, and this is the stuff that you need to be maintaining. So that brings me on to longevity. Now, we could consider longevity. I wanted to treat it separately, but it is basically the sum of all these parts of why you should be exercising. Having a generally good diet and exercise regime are going to make you live longer. They're going to make you live your life better. You're going to enjoy more things. You're going to be able to pick your kids up and you're going to be able to play football with them in the park. You're going to be able to fucking actually sail that yacht that you've been spending millions of years saving for yourself. You're going to be able to swim in the Mediterranean with hot Russian models and shit, you know, and they're going to go, Davai, look at the abs on this guy. You know, I don't know. Anyway, maybe I'm talking about my own fantasies here. But yeah, I think when you weigh it up and balance, like, as I said, consider it an investment. And if you're not making that investment, be prepared to pay the consequences when you're later in life. Putting away money for retirement and investing in your health and fitness, pretty much the same thing. It's the shit that you do now and the sacrifices that you make now that are going to give you the longer term benefits when you're a little bit older and you actually need that shit. All right. The next thing I wanted to talk about was something that has come up with my clients an awful lot. And this is about balancing an exercise routine with your lifestyle as a busy person, a busy man in this particular case, because I'm talking to you, my target audience, but a busy person. Let's say you got this 1 hour a day which you set aside and you want to get the most out of it. Now, we can talk about strategies for time management ad nauseum, but what I want to do just now is give you something actionable that you can use within that hour to really maximize your workouts. Now, in the context of this argument, I'm talking to guys that want to reduce their body fat and build muscle and maintain a generally good level of cardiovascular health. I'm not talking about people that want to be an elite level athlete. I'm not talking about people that want to be a bodybuilder. I'm not talking about people that want to walk on stage and be a cover model tomorrow. I'm talking about people that have got their mind set that they want to get into a health and fitness regime, and they just want to know how to optimize that. Maybe you fucking hate the gym, you know? Maybe you just dislike being there and you want to be there for the least amount of time possible, in which case I sympathize with you. It must be fucking terrible. I love it, but a lot of people don't. You know, I was speaking to one of the members in my family the other day, and he's really struggling to get motivated to go to the gym. And the predominant factor is he just doesn't fucking like the gym. Doesn't like these gym bros walking around flexing into the mirror like, checking out the fucking guns, bro. Pulling up the shirts. I'm not going to do that. I just had a big fucking lunch, but yeah, I'm not pulling up my shirt. Maybe later. You can subscribe to my OnlyFans for that kind of stuff. It's good shit. Anyway, he doesn't like going to the gym. He just doesn't. And like convincing him to do any kind of exercise is usually contingent on, well, like, how the fuck do I stay in there the least amount of time? So there's two elements to this, like I said. You've got your cardiovascular exercise and you have your strength training. Both have an equal place and equal importance in gaining good body composition, so a good balance of fat to muscle. How do we optimize them? Well, there are a number of things that you can do with weight training that are going to make your sessions shorter. The one thing that you have to consider is that exercise can be, I think this is a quote from some famous bodybuilder. I'll see if I can find it. It's one of those ones that gets thrown around on Instagram a lot with a picture of Ronnie Coleman or some shit like that. Anyway, look, exercise can either be long and not intense, or short and intense, but it can't be both of those things. So you need really, if you want to manage your time, to be prepared to put in the intensity into that 45-minute session that is going to make up for the fact that you're only spending 45 minutes in the gym. And there's a few ways that we can do this. My general recommendation for most people is to do supersets. So a superset is where you do one exercise and then you do another exercise immediately afterwards. And talking in strength training, usually we would try and train opposing muscle groups that work in, so if you're doing a push, then you would do a pull, for example. Let's say a chest press, and then you would do a row, exactly the opposite movement. You're hitting your chest and then you're hitting your back. you can also do that for your lower levers. So like something that extends your quads, for example, and then something that contracts your hamstrings would be two different movements. So for example, a squat or a leg extension, and then a Romanian deadlift and a hamstring curl. And pairing those two exercises together is going to allow you to minimize the amount of time that you're fucking around. And it's also going to bring up the intensity another level, because you'll not be super fatigued. Let's take the leg extension and hamstring curl example. You're going to smash your fucking quads on the leg extension. It's going to suck and you're going to be tired. And then you're going to go straight on, like 10, 15 seconds later, onto the hamstring curl and smash your hamstrings. Now, you're able to do the hamstring curl because the hamstrings are obviously, very, very obviously, a different muscle group to your quads. So you're minimizing the amount of time, increasing the intensity, and that's also going to help you a little bit with calorie burn and so on and so forth. But it's important for time management. And this way you can fit a push-pull upper body workout in on one day, and then on day number 2 you can fit a push-pull lower body workout in, and then you can mix and match and blah 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 and build your workouts around like this, so that you have eventually maximize the amount of exercises and reps and sets that you're doing and minimize the time. And it's a really great way to work out, honestly. It's a really good way of getting high intensity sets in and that kind of stuff. Now, what I will say is that the more intense the stuff that you're doing is, generally the more recovery you're gonna have to have. Now remember that dose dependent relationship that I was talking about earlier. Your recovery is just as important as the work that you're doing. So if you're not adequately recovered from one session to the next, you're going to likely need to take a little bit of time so that you can properly recover. Your central nervous system recovers, your endocrine system recovers, all of this malarkey, and you're not like cortisoling yourself into oblivion. So do bear in mind that these more intense sessions, you might need a little bit of a little day between or something like that. The other thing that I always tell guys is to cut out the fluff, cut out the bullshit from your routine. If you're already doing rows and presses, you're already hitting your biceps and your triceps. Why the fuck bother to put an arms movement in there if you've only got 45 minutes a day to work out? It's just a waste of time. You're already getting enough volume on your arms as a secondary or tertiary mover, right? Obviously, with back exercises, really there are ways that you can do certain movements, particularly like things like lat pull downs, where you absolutely minimize bicep activation, which is what you're looking for. But ultimately, in the bigger scheme of things, if you haven't got enough time to work out, don't dedicate a whole fucking day to arms, like when you could be doing bigger compound movements. Now, compound movement, let me break that down for you, is one that uses multiple joints and multiple muscle groups, whereas an isolated movement or an isolation movement, we could take something like a bicep curl. It's only acting on the elbow joint and it's only acting on the bicep and maybe a little bit of forearm to stabilize the weight there. So again, if we look at, let's say, a bicep curl, that's getting this much muscle activation. Whereas if we look at a row, where I'm hinging in here, I'm getting some of my bicep here, I'm getting my lats, getting my upper back. So really we want to just maximize our time by making sure that we optimize our exercise as best that we can. We could also talk a little bit about drop sets and giant sets and so on and so forth. I think I'll save giant sets for another video. Drop sets are also a really great way of adding intensity into your workouts. They're a great way of adding more reps. So generally the idea is that every so often you'll do a set with, let's say you're doing a set with 100 kilos, and then you'll drop the weight by a substantial margin, maybe 50%. So you do 10 reps of 100 kilos on bench press, and then you drop the weight to 50 kilos and immediately do another 10 repetitions. And that just obliterates that muscle group. It really adds a lot of stimulus. Now, there's proponents for and against this way of training, but it is another way to add intensity into your workout. And I wanted to harp on about this one more time before we move on to optimizing cardiovascular exercise for time management. And that is, you need to make a sacrifice fucking somewhere, right? If you're going to be doing something that's 45 minutes and that's all the time that you have in your day, do it fucking hard. Go for it. Don't get yourself to the point of injury. This like go hard or go home bullshit, David Goggins fucking who's going to hold the boat, tying himself up, throwing himself off a fucking dock. I don't know if you guys have seen that video. I don't know what the fuck he was maybe I'll do a critique on that later, but just like he's tied up there and like I don't know what his point is, what he's trying to prove. but he's Tom's legs are tied, and I think it's a video on fucking hell, what is it, like stuff he doesn't like to do or something, because everybody generally, I mean, who enjoys being tied up and thrown off the side of a dock? It's like a seal. It's fucking tied up here, and then he just like goes like, oh, blah, 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 blah. You know, my greatest fear is whatever, and then he just tips himself into the water, and you're like, David. He's like flopping about in the water like a fucking fish and still trying to talk. He's like, this is how I survive, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, that's another big, just before we go on to more stuff, like, don't fucking listen to half of these people, man. You don't need the mentality of a Navy SEAL who goes into combat and kills people to get fitter. Like, let's be realistic. You're a fucking dad who works in, I don't know, business development for a fucking furniture sales company. You don't need to have the mindset of someone who's going to go and stab a fucking terrorist in the head, man. You just need to fucking have a little bit of drive and determination to do a 45-minute workout each day, not a 6-month fucking deployment to Kandahar. Like, Jesus Christ. These guys are inspiring. David Goggins, full credit to him. The guy is an absolute machine. Totally different mental and genetic level to the rest of the population. Please don't try and emulate people like that, or you'll end up, I don't know, drowning or fucking rage stabbing someone at the gym. Anyway. You need to make sacrifices in terms of the intensity that you are putting into your workouts, okay? This idea that, okay, well, I'm just going to sit there and I'm going to do the exercise. It's like fucking, you know, the worst thing is when you're sitting in the gym and you see someone scrolling their fucking phone while they're doing an exercise. It's like, what the, would you not like your house then? Because you could just be doing this at your house on your fucking settee. Just going, I just had a knee operation, so actually that was really challenging for me. Just fucking sitting there on the leg extension, like WhatsApping someone, doing like a nonchalant set. No, bro, like that is not gonna do anything for you, and you are wasting your time in that instance. The stuff that you do, you need to consider in levels of intensity. So what we use commonly in training and programming is something called the RPE scale, which is the rate of perceived exertion. It goes from 1 to 10, with 10 obviously being, holy shit, I'm going to fucking puke everywhere. I'm going to die. Please stop. This is horrible. Oh God, I'm going to die. And 1 being like, am I awake? I don't know. So everything that you're doing when you're doing shorter sessions like this, if you're investing maybe 4 or 5 45-minute sessions into your workouts each week, should be at a fucking 8, 9, 10 level. Like, not all of it at 10, but like at least an 8. Or else you're just spinning your wheels, man. Cardio. Dose-dependent relationships. Again, fucking doctor terminology, because I'm actually an engineer. I'm not a doctor, but I'm smart. You know, I'm super smart. I have 2 degrees. One of my clients used to say I have 2 brains, which, thanks, Aaron, I do have 2 brains. The super suave, sexy one, and then the one that everybody else sees. And the super suave, sexy one only happens in the shower when I'm like going back over shit that I should have said to people that were rude to me and stuff. Anyway, the problem with cardio is that there is a ratio of recoverability. Now, what I mean by that is that when I talk to my clients, my priority is usually giving them a solid strength training program and then putting the cardio on top of that, so that their cardio programming accommodates for that strength program. And this is something I've talked about before in the past. Yes, you do want to have cardio in your routine. Yes, you do want it to be there to A, assist in helping generate a calorie deficit, but B, also just for your general health and cardiovascular fitness. Like we talked about before, you don't want to be keeling over from a fucking heart attack, man. But what we'll find is that cardio comes in generally, well, I mean, it can come in many forms, but for the purposes of targeted energy expenditure for the objective of optimizing body fat on your body, you can either do long, slow, intense shit, long, slow, like meh stuff where you're walking, or you can do hard bucking core HIIT stuff. The hardcore HIIT stuff is a lot more difficult to recover from. The other thing as well is that we have to look on a scale of what's effective and what's not. So when we're talking about cardio, stuff that involves your full body weight is really effective because you're using all of your muscles at once. And another thing to consider as well is if you're only doing like cycling or running or something like that, that's only in your lower extremities. It's not spreading the load of the cardio across your body. You're more likely to develop fatigue in your lower limbs, for example, if all you do is running, or all you do is cycling, hard cycling or something like that. So yeah, full body cardio is generally accepted as being more metabolically, as in more spiking the endocrine system and promoting like a more calorie burn response, more efficient. So the efficient stuff is short in time, high in intensity, same shit with the fucking weightlifting, exactly the same kind of concept. If you've only got a few hours in the day to really spare on stuff like this, I would recommend doing something like a high intensity interval training session, where you are working for a set period of time, resting for a set period of time, working for a set period of time, resting for a set period of time. Now, you can get probably the effect of like a 45 to 60 minute slow treadmill walk done in 15 minutes that way in terms of calorie burn and all of that kind of stuff. But the fall down point here is that you have to fucking go at it. You have to fucking nail that shit, bro. Like, you can't be there 30 seconds on the assault bike being like, 5 calories, 30 seconds off, oh, that was easy. And then 15 fucking rounds later, you're not even broken a sweat. No, you want to be breathing heavily. You want to be, I mean, maybe you don't sweat like fucking Prince Andrew. I sweat like a fucking, there's a really bad one about people being in playgrounds there that I was going to fucking use, but like a racehorse, I don't know. Or is that pissed like a racehorse? Whatever, anyway, I sweat a lot. Some people don't sweat, but you should be breathing heavily. And it's a really good determiner of how difficult something is, like the heaviness of your breathing. So yeah, Tabata or HIIT workouts are great for this. 15 minutes of high intensity full body activity with 30 seconds of work, 30 seconds of rest, 45 seconds of work, 15 seconds of rest, however you want to time it. 15 to 20 minutes of that, job done, sorted. Try not to add too many external sources of weights. Like this CrossFit stuff is only really good for fucking CrossFitters, like dumbbell workouts and all of this shit. Like, and to be honest with you, if you're sitting here listening to me about why you should be or how you can optimize your time, you probably don't need to be using dumbbells in your workouts yet, in your cardio workouts. So burpees, jumps, squat jumps, lunges, fucking assault bike, rowing machine, elliptical, anything that's eliciting a full body response, hard for 30 seconds or 45 seconds or however long you want to go, full rest for another 30, 15 minutes, bam, fucking Robert's your father's brother, you've got 15 minutes that you crammed into your day, you've probably burnt 300 and something calories. And finally, in terms of total calorie burn and cardiovascular health, you should be considering how many steps in a day you're doing. If you are a very sedentary person, i.e. you wake up in the morning, you hop in the car, you go to work, you sit at a desk, you come back home, you sit on the couch, and that's that, you know, then you are not burning very many calories in your daily life. If you're a more active person, so let's say you work in a construction job or a job where you're off walking around all day or talking to clients or doing whatever it is that you do, which involves you taking a lot of steps, then you can probably have less cardio sessions and less of a calorie deficit in your diet to lose weight. But if you fall into that former category, that really sedentary person, what you're going to have to do is compensate by either balancing out your calories, dropping those calories a little bit, or upping the volume and intensity of your cardio a little bit. Or there's another solution, step tracker. So a great way of moderating how much total energy you're expending throughout the course of the day is by counting your steps, being mindful of the steps that you're counting. Now, my general recommendation to people is that as an average normal person, try and target between 8 and 10,000 steps a day and then add your cardio on top of that. You could find, though, to be honest with you, that even just getting up to 10,000 steps a day and including 3 or 4 or 5 strength sessions in your week is sufficient for you to start losing body fat. But honestly, my recommendation to you is to get even a cheap Chinese step tracker. okay, maybe not the Chinese ones, because when the nuclear bombs fall, they'll know where you are, or maybe they'll be selling your card details on TikTok or whatever the fuck. Anyway, look, a cheap step tracker is fantastic. As you get more proficient with exercise, it is worth investing in exercise technology, stuff like Fitbits and Garmin's and all of this kind of stuff. Maybe not Whoop bands, they suck absolute fucking balls. And I will do a full video on why Whoop bands are absolute anus. My last business that I worked for full-time in corporate insisted that we had Whoop bands. And despite fucking 2 hours a day of competition level training for CrossFit, I was always like the lowest scoring energy expenditure. It was just fucking bullshit. And then the fucking finance manager would go for a walk in the morning, and because of his level of fitness not being optimal, that walk would be like fucking 8 million calories according to the Whoop. And also having a Garmin already and then having a Whoop and having two things tell me that I fucking suck, nah, not for me. Anyway, we'll get on to fitness wearables maybe in another video. Listen, I hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and I hope that there are some action points that you've taken away from it. I think, just to sum up, what we've discussed here is that health and fitness is an investment. It's one of the best ways to prevent disease and increase longevity. And if you have a family and kids and all of that kind of stuff, sometimes it can be a little bit hard to balance a healthy exercise routine into your life. Next time we'll talk maybe a little bit about balancing a diet routine, but today we've talked about exercise. And I talked about some strategies like supersets and high intensity cardio to minimize the amount of time that you're at the fucking gym and increase the amount of time that you can actually be with your family or be working or get on with whatever the fuck it is that you want to do. If this stuff is interesting to you, if you need help with your fitness programming, get in touch with me. I will drop a link in the description where you can put in a coaching inquiry to work with me either online or hybrid through either fitness programming, nutrition programming, or both a two-sided approach to that. I have helped at this stage in my career hundreds of men, probably like yourselves, and women and athletes, get into the shape of their lives, and I've done it in such a way that it never really feels like it's a huge struggle. Although obviously we've just talked about how sometimes you need to make a little bit of a sacrifice. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you've got all the way through it, geez man, drop me a message because I owe you a beer. In fact, comment in the DMs, beer 101. But yeah, I will see you guys for the next one.